Okay, 4.5 banners are insane. We have a new generalist supporter, which is Robin Summer that has insane amount of flexibility, new Elation DPS that also has a good flexibility in terms of his team composition, which is aventurine waveflair. On top of that, the reruns in this patch are also hard to ignore. So, who should you pull then? Now in this video we are going to talk about each of the characters on 4.5 and give them a score in terms of pull value. I also want to talk a little bit about Hyacine's and Ashveil's vertical investment, whether or not they are still worth it. If you are still confused of which units to pull or vertically invested into, then this video is for you. Before we continue, please hit the like and subscribe button. Now if you have done that, let's get this video started. For the first new character, we have Robin Summer. Actually, I already made a special video about her, you can check it if you want. So today in this video, specifically in her section, we will just talk about her briefly. So let's talk about what we know. First, we know that she's going to be HP healer, provide multiple buffs for the team, even herself. She can give characters 100% extend advance and provide the ally energy regen by 20% from their max energy. Most importantly, she is not just a remembrance only character. She can work in a variety of teams, similar to how the original Robin was designed around follow-up attack, but ended up being useful basically everywhere. Extend advance is one of the strongest mechanics in the game. It's one of the main reasons characters like Bronya were so strong when the game first launched, and it's also a huge part of why Sunday and Sparkle is so good. But at the end of the day, should you pull for Robin Summer? From a remembrance team, she's more recommended in Evernight main DPS compositions rather than Castory's upgrade, but that doesn't mean Robin won't work at all in cast composition. She works well in Himeko teams, Aglaia, Ashblade, and many more, with the exception break teams. Overall, her value is insane, and I would recommend to get her E1 over her signature because this will let her to contribute more to the team's damage contribution. Her E1 basically Cypher's ultimate. Then if you can, proceed with her E2 to get more vibe stacks, which then translates to more buffs for your team. So Robin Summer at E0 is 9 out of 10, her early Eidolons get 9.5 out of 10. Okay, next let's talk about Aventurine waveflair. From everything we have seen so far, he looks like a very viable and versatile DPS. As we already know, Aventurine is an Elation Quantum character. And being Elation character is actually a really good thing right now because a lot of the current endgame content is heavily focused around Elation. Elation is basically the current meta of 4.0 and a lot of future content is going to revolve around it. So building more Elation characters is definitely not a bad idea in the current state of Star Rail. But one of the biggest advantage Aventurine has is that he does not completely rely on other Elation characters to function. We actually saw him showcased in a team that did not have a single other Elation character. That means he's not completely dependent on you having characters like Yaguang, Superwolf, and Sparksy just to make him work. You can actually replace some of those characters and use other 5-star DPS characters alongside him. Now that doesn't mean he can't work with Elation teams. They also showed him in the team with other Elation characters, and obviously he works there too. You just are not forced into using them, which I think is a huge advantage. And the reason he can do this is because he has a system that allows him to generate his own Elation skills. Both Aventurine and his teammates can generate fervor points through their attacks. Once he reaches 10 points, he can trigger his own Elation skill. So it's kind of similar to how Yaguang gets her Elation skill through her ultimate, except Aventurine is generating his points through himself and his teammates taking actions. He builds up those points, reaches the required amount, and then triggers the Elation skill. So you are not completely dependent on the AHA instant to activate your Elation skills. Obviously, you still get additional benefits from the AHA instant, and those skills will deal more damage when they are triggered through it. But Aventurine does not require to function, and I think that's a pretty big advantage. Overall, he looks like a really solid DPS. I would definitely recommend considering him if you are already investing into Elation, especially if you did not pull Superwolf and you are currently looking for a good DPS. But if you already have Evanesia, Superwolf as the main carry, you can skip him and may pull Robin Summer instead, since she is a generalist support that could also fit into Ashblade team comms, which we will talk about later in Ashveil's section. So Aventurine is a really solid unit, moreover he is quite versatile, that's why I give him the score 8.5 out of 10. I seriously recommend his E1 rather than his signature for vertical investments. His situation is somehow similar to Evanesia, where both of their first Eidolon provides huge upgrade over their own signatures. If you convert his E1, then the score for him is around 9.5 out of 10 in follow-up teams. Let's start with the two characters that are not actually new. First up, we have Hyacine, who's going to be appearing in the first phase alongside Robin. I'm sure most of you already know how good Hyacine is, but she's still great in basically everything. Personally, I would consider her the best healer in the entire game right now. If you bring Hyacine into pretty much any content, you are just not going to die. Seriously, you almost have to actively try to die with her on your team. Her healing from her skill, her ultimate, and even Ika's follow-up attack restores so much HP that is honestly ridiculous. Now, whether or not you should pull Hyacine really depends on what sustains you already have and what teams you are currently building. Obviously, if you are investing into Remembrance, whether that's Evernight, Castoris, or other characters in that archetype, Hyacine is a pretty important part of that team. If you don't have her, getting her would be a massive upgrade for your account. If you are building a Remembrance team, I would definitely consider getting her. If you're not using Remembrance, she does lose some value, but honestly, not that much. She can still be used in pretty much every other team in the game, and she can easily replace other sustained characters you might be using. And with the current endgame setup requiring 3 teams in basically every game mode, having multiple good sustains has become much more important. It also helps that Hyacine is relatively easy to build. You basically just stack speed and HP, and that's pretty much it. The problem is that her speed requirements are fairly high, which is where her light cone becomes somewhat important because it helps her reach those higher speed thresholds. Ideally, you are looking around 200 speed on Hyacine, so that's roughly the number you should be aiming for. So would I recommend pulling Hyacine? Yes, absolutely. In fact, for a lot of counts, I would argue that Hyacine is probably the most valuable character in this entire update. If you are struggling with sustain the current endgame, or you are trying to build a Remembrance team and don't have Hyacine for it, then I would definitely recommend pulling her. But what if you already have her at E0S0? Is it better to pull her signature or even her first Eidolon? For Hyacine, particularly for Castoris mains, E1 Hyacine has some really good value. There are also some very important Eidolon combinations involving E1 Evernight and E2 Castoris. To remind you once again, her first Eidolon let all her allies gain more 50% max HP when she is in her ultimate state, and every time they attack, Hyacine will recover their HP. So this will only bring a lot of benefit for HP scalar DPS or sub DPS, which is why her E1 for cost Castoris team is more recommended. That alone gives her team DPS around 35% increase. As for her light cone, it's actually still good and probably less risks because the probability to win it, but it only gives around 20 to 23% damage increase for Castoris team. Her signature light cone has decent value, but I would not consider it as important as E1 in terms of actual performance. The story's next patch light cone is also a great alternative if you don't want to invest in her signature. For anyone else thinking about using Hyacine, especially those who want to pair her with Robin Summer and Evernight, Hyacine is still probably the best sustain available. So the score for Hyacine is 9 out of 10 for me. Next up, Ashveil is returning for the first time. Now that he is out for a while, most of you guys must have known what he is capable of. He's really solid DPS character, and there's actually something interesting about Ashveil that they showed during the announcement. They actually showcased him alongside aventurine waveflair. You can see him down there fighting alongside him. And the reason for that is because Ashveil works really well as both a main DPS and a sub DPS. He basically brought follow-up attack teams back into the meta. Follow-up attacks had been in a bit of weird spot where they were not exactly forgotten, but they definitely were not as relevant as they used to be. Then Ashveil came along and suddenly made them a lot more interesting again. He performs so many follow-up attacks and deals so much damage through them that it's honestly kind of ridiculous. But is it worth it to pull him at E0S0? Ashveil is basically completely viable at E0. Again, I think this really depends on what characters you already have and what teams you want to build around him. If you are planning on getting Aventurine, then maybe getting Ashveil as well could be a pretty good idea. And obviously, Ashveil and Emblade work extremely well together. His value still depends on how much investment your Emblade has. The biggest breakpoint here is E2 Emblade. So if you are thinking about pulling Ashveil, I highly recommend checking your account first and seeing whether you actually have Emblade. If you don't have him, Ashveil's performance is going to suffer quite a bit. But outside of using Emblade as his support, Ashveil is still a very capable DPS on his own. You can pair him with characters like Sparkle, 3B, Sunday, and most likely the new Robin as well. So technically he has plenty of options as a main DPS. He also works really well with someone like Fei Xiao. Now that particular team is a little more cop because Fei Xiao has fallen off quite a bit compared to where she used to be, but Ashveil can definitely still work in that composition. I should also mention that Ashveil works pretty well with Acheron too, although if you are planning on running Acheron and Ashveil together, I would definitely want Emblade in that team as well, which obviously makes the team more expensive. So you could argue that Ashveil is a little more expensive to build around simply because he wants several limited 5 stars that are not exactly the easiest characters to get. So what if you want to vertically invest in Ashveil? Is his signature more worth it, or are his Eidolon better? So assuming if you are skipping Robin Summer and use 3B and Emblade instead in Ashveil's team, and all of them are at E0, then I definitely recommend you vertically invest in Emblade's Eidolon instead. If you could, stop at his E2. It will give you tons of damage increase, approximately around 50% and above. So generally speaking, Emblade's vertical upgrades are stronger than Ashveil's. But if you somehow can't pull or even can't afford E2 Emblade, then I suggest you to get Robin Summer and slip her into this team, replacing 3B. Her E0 already provides around 25% damage increase compared to using E0 3B. But again, E2 Emblade is more recommended. This scenario only viable when you don't want to or can't afford Emblade's second Eidolon at the moment. So for Ashveil, his banner ranking together with his relevancy in the meta is 8.5 out of 10 from me. So that's all for Who to Pull video about Honkai Star Rail patch 4.5. So tell me in the comment section, which unit are you going to pull and what are the reasons behind it? Or are you going to skip all of them instead? I hope this video is helpful. If you feel so, please hit the like and subscribe button, turn notification as well so you won't be missing out on any of my Star Rail content. I will see you guys on my next one. Bye bye!